academia. He has published approximately 41 research journals in international reviewed journals. He has, to his credit, 4 industry, government reports, 6 granted US patents. Currently, he is working as Assistant Professor, Department of Chemical and Material Engineering, University of Alberta, Canada. His research interest is development of photoelectrocatalysts, reactor systems for renewable hydrogen and chemical production, development of integrated energy systems models based on techno-economic and life cycle analysis to help build credible net zero transition pathways with a focus on role of hydrogen. The topic of today's talk is hydrogen and the decarbonization of steel production in Canada. Dr. Adnan, over to you now.
Is my screen visible?
You are visible. Your slide is also visible. You are also visible.
In the future. The second statement I want to make, while the study itself is focused on the steel production in Canada, the approach and methodology used here is applicable for India and jurisdictions around the world. Before I dive into my talk today, a quick snapshot of my research group at the University of Alberta. We call it Energy Transition Lab. Basically, we have 2 arms of research. We have the experimental part of the research, which focuses on developing catalysts, and this is all fundamental science regarding developing electric catalysts or renewable fuels and production. A lot of the focus is on biomass oxidation and methane oxidation to produce new fuels and chemicals. The other part of the research group is really about developing energy systems model, primarily using techno-economic analysis and life cycle analysis to develop credible net zero transition pathways. And like highlighted in the introduction, a lot of my interest is really around the role of hydrogen for different energy sectors, right? And that is what I'm going to focus on, is really the role of hydrogen for steel production. So my presentation today has 4 different sections. The first section is called steel production routes, energy use and emissions. Then I basically go to the core of the study, which is a case study around the adoption of hydrogen for steel production in the Hamilton region. Hamilton is the region where we produce steel in Canada. And the steel industry, how the steel industry can act as an anchor tenant for a larger hydrogen economy, and some key recommendations. Like I said, the study was framed around steel production in Canada, but the approach, methodology, and results is also very relevant for India. Okay. So energy use and emissions associated with Canadian steel production. So the slide I have here is about steel making in Canada. Just added a few facts and figures about India as well. Now regarding Canada, we are about the top 2 producers of steel in the world. We produce about 13 million tons of steel. But this dwarfs against what India produces. India is the second largest steel producer in the world, producing about 154 million tons of steel. And steel is an essential product in the entire energy transition. Steel is deep-rooted for our society to use in every aspect of our life. And when we talk about CO2 emissions from steel making in Canada, there is about 15 million tons of CO2 emissions from steel production. India is about 297 million tons of CO2 emissions. That's significant. There's a fact I read which needs to be double-checked. These emissions from steel production in India are about 12% of the country's total CO2 emissions, which is very significant. So this is a very important sector that India needs to focus on decarbonizing. And when I talk about steel production, the blast furnace or the blast oxygen furnace route has the largest share of primary steel production. I will go through what this route means. But in the past, the Canadian steel industry has heavily invested in reducing energy consumption and emissions from this sector. And this is highlighted in the emission intensity graph here, where you can see has the lowest emission intensity for primary steel production, while India is among the top three highest. So India is right here, and Canada is here. So there is a long way to go for India to really look at decarbonizing this industry. Now, when I talk about primary steel production, the slide I have here covers three primary steel making routes. The blast furnace, followed by the blast oxygen furnace route, which basically uses coal or coke as a reducing agent and also as an energy source. For reducing iron ore, the blast furnace, you basically convert the coal to carbon monoxide, which is the reducing agent, and then you make a pig iron, which is further reduced or further purified in a blast oxygen furnace to make your crude steel. Other alternative routes to making steel, it is the DRI route, which is direct reduced iron. So typically this uses natural gas as a reducing agent and also produces energy use. So you have shaft furnace, and the key aspect for the direct reduced iron is basically reduced iron ore, so it's melting point in its solid state, right? And you make direct reduced iron, which is further purified in an electric arc furnace. The focus of this study is around hydrogen DRI. So this is identical to the natural gas DRI route, but it's instead of using natural gas, we use hydrogen as a reducing agent, but also for providing the energy required for the process, right? An important fact to highlight here is a couple of important facts actually. The hydrogen used in this process will only make sense if it comes from low carbon sources. So either from water electrolysis powered by renewable electricity or via blue hydrogen, which is basically steam performance coupled with carbon capture and storage. Right? The second important point, hydrogen DRI is a little tricky because it's an endothermic process, so you need extra thermal energy to maintain the shaft temperature. And that I will highlight it as well. So I have here a breakdown in energy use and emission to primary steel production, all the three different routes. The left-hand side is basically our results in this study, and this is from another source in literature. What you see is 2 points, and I highlighted this very clearly. The DRI routes are more energy efficient than the traditional blast furnace plus oxygen furnace route. Right? It can be fueled with either natural gas or hydrogen, like I said. The impact of DRI, so compared to blast furnace plus oxygen furnace, there is significant emission reduction, scope 1 emissions, with the use of the DRI process. With the use of natural gas, you can reduce it about 60 to 70%. With the use of hydrogen, you can almost reduce the scope of emissions to nearly zero. So a significant advantage of transition to hydrogen DRI. But apart from these advantages, there are also challenges with transitioning to hydrogen DRI. What are the challenges? The main challenge is the cost of energy. So assuming a natural gas $5.50 Gen 2, this is without carbon taxes. In today's scenario, best case scenario, hydrogen price, let's assume 3 to 5, we're not talking Canadian dollars a kg of hydrogen. We're talking about anywhere between $20 to $35 a Gen 2. So you're really looking at the price going 4 to 5 times higher when transitioning from natural gas DRI to hydrogen DRI. So the key message I want to highlight at the end of this slide is minimizing the cost of hydrogen supply will be critical if we really have to make hydrogen DRI work. So how do we really do that? When I talk about reducing the cost of hydrogen delivered to steel industry, let's talk about production first. So like I said, you can make low carbon hydrogen via electrolysis. In today's scenario, based on the current cost of electrolyzers, when you can produce hydrogen, via water electrolysis, but the cost of that hydrogen will be quite expensive, right? So I have on the graph here is levelized cost of hydrogen production as a function of electrolyzer use and the cost of electricity. The cost of electricity is the key determinant which dictates the cost of the hydrogen. In today's scenario, you need very, very cheap electricity at 3 cents a kilowatt hour or 30 cents or $30 a megawatt hour to produce low cost hydrogen at $3 a kilowatt hour. And this has to be available with high capacity factors. Right? Even in the future, with electrolyzer prices going down, we still will be significantly dependent on the electricity price, right, to dictate the cost of the hydrogen production. Versus natural gas performing a mature technology, doing most of the hydrogen in today's scenario is what made by steam methane forming. And when coupled carbon capture and storage, you can make low carbon hydrogen via natural gas forming. This process, the cost of the hydrogen produced, significantly depends on the natural gas price. But the most important point to highlight here is, irrespective of the natural gas price, and if you go up to 6 or 8 Canadian dollars a kg, you can still make hydrogen at very low cost, about 2 to 2.5 Canadian dollars a kg of hydrogen, right? Obviously, the key point to highlight here is you require the right geology for permanent CO2 storage. Alright. So this is really setting the context, but look at this particular case study about the adoption of hydrogen in the Hamilton region. So in Canada, there are 3 primary steel making plants, which is all located in southern Ontario. So this is the map of Canada, this is the United States. These 3 red dots are our 3 primary steel making facilities. In this particular study, we basically were looking at the ArcelorMittal Nefasco plant, which is right here.